357 Magnum is a caliber that's wholly American. A guy by the name of Elmer Keith started playing around with the 38 Special. And the 38 Special was, kind of a popular caliber back then, but he was a wildcatter and he was pushing the limits of the capabilities of that 38 Special, and he was kind of the impetus behind what Winchester would ultimately develop into the 357 Magnum caliber. And that happened in 1935 when that caliber was introduced. So it's quite a long time ago. And the 357 Magnum became very popular. The 357 Magnum became popular especially with police. And if you want to talk about police involvement with the 357 Magnum, which served the police nationwide from the 1940s through the 1990s, the 357 Magnum was just pretty much in every holster. And the Model 19 that I'm holding here was the brainchild of a famous law enforcement officer, Border Patrol, and also a famous gunfighter, and his name was Bill Jordan. Bill Jordan went to Smith & Wesson and said, hey, look, I got the idea for the perfect peace officer's firearm. I want it built on a K-frame, which is smaller than the Smith & Wesson N-frame, and I want it to have a small cylinder, a smaller, lighter frame, but I want a heavier barrel. And I think that would be the perfect combination for law enforcement. And so the U.S. Border Patrol adopted what was then called the Combat Magnum. We know it today as the Model 19. And other departments also adopted it because, as you can see from this older Smith & Wesson Model 19, this is a 19-4. It's an earlier generation because it does have a pinned barrel, and you can tell that it also has the firing pin on the hammer. But yeah, this revolver became very popular with law enforcement and even civilians. And so this is an original, and this was discontinued, I believe, in 1999. Well, right around 2014, 2015, Smith & Wesson reintroduced the Model 19, and we have one of those out here this afternoon as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Model 19, and I want to compare the new one to the old one and see what differences there are, because I've seen a couple already just simply looking at the two side by side. The Model 19 it looks like the grip is almost too big for the gun because it is such a small frame. The K-frame is a very, very small, light frame, and these are the target wood grips, which fill my large hands just fine. To load it, you just push forward, swing the cylinder out. I stick my two fingers in like that. Now you can use a speed loader, or you can just drop rounds in. Now you'll notice that the cylinder walls are really thin on the Model 19. The cylinder is smaller than something like a Model 27, which would be built on the N-frame. The little K-frame has this tiny cylinder, and those cylinder walls are really, really thin, and thanks to modern metallurgy, it can handle the pressures of 357 Magnum. Now, I had one of these back in the 80s. It was my first 357 Magnum firearm. Sadly, I sold it. I needed money. When I got out of the military, I sold it. That was a 19-3. It took me many years to find one in good condition. This one's a 19-4. Externally, they look identical to the original gun that I had that I wish I would have kept. So anyway, it holds 6 rounds. And you can shoot 38 Special or, of course, 357 Magnum. Now, the smaller revolver like this, it was rumored, and I don't know if this is true, that you should shoot 38 Specials as part of its regular diet and only use 357 Magnum sparingly because of the small dimensions and tight tolerances of those chambers in that really small cylinder. Now, whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. I've never fed one a steady diet of super hot full house load 357 Magnums, but back in those days, people told us shoot 38s, carry 357 Magnums for self-defense. The gun is a single action or double action, so it has this nice wide spur. Cock it, and has a really nice trigger, nice light crisp trigger, but it also has a good double action. All right, hit the ejector, kicks out the empties, reload, repeat. So let's do some shooting with the original and let's do some shooting with the new one and take a look at those differences. The Model 19-4 that I showed you at the opening of the video has wood target stocks on it, and they're very thick. The new Model 19, with its 4-inch barrel, the other one has a 4-inch barrel as well, has wood stocks again, except they're not quite as thick. Here you'll find that they're more narrow at the top and they kind of bulge as you get towards the bottom of the grip. It feels really good. It also feels like it's maybe a little bit more vertical, And I would say that the new grips actually fit my hand even better. It's more ergonomic, even though the thicker wood grips of the first generation or the fourth generation gun do feel good in my hand. That narrowness at the top actually does feel pretty darn good, and that palm swell is in the right spot. You'll notice on the new gun, the cylinder release, you just push forward, is right there where the other one is. Similar location, but if you look right on top of it, that's an internal lock. And that internal lock allows you to lock the mechanism of the gun so it can't be fired. And it's been affectionately called on the internet the Hillary hole. I think it dorks up the appearance of the gun. If you want a lock on the gun, Smith & Wesson, just ship a lock in the box, which I think they already do anyway. And please, in the future, we all beg you, get rid of the Hillary hole. It's awful. The other thing you'll notice that pops out at you is when you cock the hammer on the current generation, the firing pin's gone. Now, just because the firing pin's gone on this gun doesn't mean it's safer than the earlier Smith & Wessons that had the firing pin on them. Even though you have 6 rounds loaded with the original, with the firing pin on the hammer and the firing pin could not touch the primer of the cartridge unless the trigger was pulled. If you didn't pull the trigger, the hammer could not fall all the way forward. So I'm not sure why Smith & Wesson did that. It's one of those things that I wish they hadn't done, because I'm one of those old school guys that loves having the firing pin on the hammer. Both of the guns have target sights. This one has an orange insert in the front blade, but the sights over the years with the Smith & Wesson revolvers have changed. The trigger on this one is a little bit more narrow. I have a wide trigger shoe on the 19-4. This new one has a little bit more narrow trigger. It's rounded and it feels really, really good. Now the weapon is empty. You can see nothing in the cylinder. If you take a look at the muzzle end, you'll notice that it almost looks like the barrel's sleeved. You can see a distinctive ring there, like the barrel's pressed into an outer sleeve for some reason. That's one of the differences I noticed. Also, and we'll show you some pictures of this, with the new revolver, right here next to my index finger, there's a detent. And on the ejector rod, it's rounded now. In the older Smith & Wessons, they would lock in the rear here, where this when you depress this, it will push forward on the pin on the back of the cylinder and release the lock from the frame so the cylinder can swing open. Well, this is behaving more like a Ruger now because it has a detent here and has gotten rid of the front lock here. On the old revolvers, when you push this lever, it'd push this pin and it would push a pin inside the rod that would push against the locking pin in this lug under the barrel. That's changed. That's a pretty significant change. I don't know that it makes any noticeable difference in terms of the action of the gun, but it seems like Smith & Wesson's changed quite a bit. Internally, we have a lock, we have a relocation of how the crane locks, or how the arm here on the cylinder now is part of the locking mechanism, and the ejector rod is no longer part of the locking mechanism. And we've ditched the firing pin, and it looks like we have a sleeved barrel. Let's go ahead and shoot it though with some 38 specials, and then we'll get some 357 Magnum rounds out. Now these are really, really light handguns, and with full house 357 Magnum loads, they got quite a bit of punch to them. I never invest in speed loaders. I don't shoot revolvers enough. Revolvers are nice if you like to target shoot a lot and you reload, because you don't always have to bend over and pick up the brass. All right, let's try that single action and see how it compares to my original gun. Very nice, they feel very similar. I think I short stroked that. I didn't pull the hammer all the way back, and sure enough, I short stroked it. Now this is not a problem with the gun, it's just me, but you'll see hit, 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 skip, hit. So, yeah. Leave it to me. So when you're in a gunfight, don't try cocking the pistol. Just use double action. All right, let's lock her back up. And the double action, yeah, feels just as good. So the action, I really can't tell much of a difference in the action between the two guns. They both feel really, really good. Smith & Wesson has always had really nice triggers on their revolvers. I know some folks will send them out to have trigger work done, but honestly, the double action's smooth, the single action's super light and crisp. Yeah, and the rounds all fall free. So the new one is beautiful. It's blued, just like the original. It has a nice high polished blue on it. I'm liking it. This is its first day out at the range, by the way. This new Smith & Wesson Model 19 was sent to us by our friends over at Big Daddy Unlimited. They send us firearms for use in video at no charge, but they also don't send us a paycheck. We are able to use these guns, offer our honest opinions. We can say whatever we want. If we don't like it, we'll say we don't like it. If we like it, we say we like it. They don't care. If you want evidence of that, go back and check out our CZ 527 video. I pointed out several problems with that firearm, and at the end of the day, I said I wouldn't buy it. They sent us that rifle for video. So I'd like again to thank our friends over at BDU for making this possible today. Here we have some old school Remington 158 grain 357 Magnum loads. So we're going to stick these in the new pistol and see how she fares. Honestly, I shoot more 38s than I do 357 Magnums. Let's walk on over here. Try not to get too much into the sunlight so you guys don't have a horrible video image. And let's see how she shoots. Now, one thing you got might be mindful of is to keep your thumb away from that latch when you're shooting these Magnums, because that will take a hunk of skin off. All right, so the recoil isn't that bad on the little gun. I will say that the back of the trigger guard is whacking me in the knuckle. You can kind of see the impact there. So the recoil is pretty stiff. You want to get a good tight grip on it, but that's not uncommon. The grip still feels really, really good. Now, one thing I did notice that's also different with the newer gun versus the older the back strap metal comes all the way down and follows the contour of the wood. If you take a look at this, you'll notice it looks like a round butt frame, and then they've put a longer wood grip on it. Keep in mind, this is the 4-inch classic barrel. They also make a shorter barrel with a round butt that is a carry gun, and it looks like they're just using the exact same frame for the different models, where in the past you would have different cut frames for different models. So there's a cost saving measure that takes place right there, and you can just see a little bit of ledge of wood there, but honestly it doesn't change the feel of the grip at all, and still feels pretty darn good. So let's run some of those old Remington rounds through the 19-4, the old classic girl. So again, you can see where it's hitting me on that top knuckle. Same thing with those stout loads, man, they're really pushing back. 357 Magnum has some oomph to it, guys. It's not a PUD cartridge. It's actually quite powerful. Now, another thing I'm gonna show you guys, there's a couple of other things that are different between the old Model 19 and the new one. So here on my classic 19, the front sight blade is machined into the barrel. It's not pinned. If you look at the front, I'm gonna go ahead and open it so you don't have to worry about the gun being loaded. You can see it's flush and it's clearly machined into the barrel. Then the barrel screwed in and pinned. Now if we take a look at the newer pistol, gun is clear. Take a look at the newer pistol. We have that sleeve we were talking about. It looks like a sleeve. I haven't confirmed whether or not it is, but you'll also notice there's a pin there. So now you can swap out your front sight blade. Now both guns, as you can clearly see, We have the new gun on top and the old one on the bottom. They have the adjustable sights. They're adjustable for elevation and windage. Target sights, in other words. And you can see that they have the same basic texturing on the top to get rid of glare. And you can notice also the spur on the older gun is bigger and really, yeah, it's about the same in terms of aggression or how aggressive it is, but you definitely have a much smaller spur on the hammer of the newer 19. Also, if you take a look at the cylinder on the newer gun, you'll notice it's flush. So when you put a round in it, the rim sticks up. It does not sink into a recess. If you take a look at the older Model 19, you'll notice it's cut out, extra machining processes. So obviously there's some cost savings that's being done to the newer guns. When you put a round in here, see how it sets flush? So pretty interesting, the subtle differences between the old versus the new. But when it comes to shooting them, they feel nearly identical. I will say, I think I favor the more modern, slimmer grips of the new gun, but I can't get past just the absolute beauty and sexiness of the older generation Smiths. I really like them. I like the fact they don't have that stupid safety. I like the fact they have a firing pin on them. Yeah, but they both seem to be really, really nice pistols. So on the new generation Model 19, I had pointed out that it has a little detent on the frame right there that then locks into the crane here on the arm that the cylinder rests on. Now this is the 19-4, and you'll notice on the front of the ejection rod there is a hole, and it passes all the way through to the locking pin here on the rear. So when you push the release button, it pushes forward on this pin, and you can see how the pin pushes forward through the ejector rod. The ejector rod locks into that little detent right there inside the underlug of the original Model 19. So they moved the locking from the front of the ejector rod and the lug to the receiver right here on the new gun. Does it make it stronger? I don't know. Shoot some more 38s here. I do like the wide target trigger on this older 19 as well. Those 38s are so mild. All right. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, people say I don't like revolvers. I do. Do I think they're practical for modern carry? For nostalgic purposes, probably. But give me an automatic any day of the week for self-defense. After a while, law enforcement came to the conclusion that 6 rounds just wasn't enough. So law enforcement agencies across the United States ditched their .357 Magnum revolvers and their Model 19s in favor of Chinese AKMs and 7.62x39, which hold 30 rounds in the clipazine. And the rest is history. I'm just kidding, guys. Chase from Definitive Arms is out here today test firing some stuff he's working on. This is a transferable AKM, and it is Chinese made, and it was a real mess when Chase got a hold of it. He made it beautiful again, and we just wanted to test fire it this afternoon, and he let me pull the trigger on it. Obviously, it works just fine, and we thought that would be kind of a fun insert for the video. An Easter egg for you guys. The new Model 19 sells for right around $720, and you know what? It seems to be a beautiful gun. I have read some reports of Smith & Wesson's quality control lacking in some cases, like barrels not being screwed into frames straight. I've not seen that personally with any of the guns that I've handled at gun stores, and certainly not with this particular revolver or other newer Smiths that I do own. The blue on it looks just like a classic blue. It's a high luster blue. It's kind of hot and muggy and humid out here right now, and everything has condensation on it, but it seems to be nicely finished. The wood grips look good. Everything's nice and tight, shoots straight. And overall, I think it's a pretty neat little pistol if you want to pick up a Model 19. Now that these are back on the market, you're not going to have to pay exorbitant prices for an old one like my original. I keep calling it an original, my 19-4. So for about $700, you could get a nice little handgun like this. And you know, if you're a revolver guy and you want to use it for self-defense, that's what this Model 19 was built for. It was supposed to be the ideal peace officer's firearm. So, and I should mention it has a 4.25-inch barrel. All right, guys, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel, you can do that by clicking the link down below and becoming a Patreon supporter. We do not take any industry money. We don't take paychecks from Smith & Wesson or Big Daddy Unlimited or anybody else. We're supported by you, our viewers, and that's the only way that we can assure you that we're giving you our honest opinions. Also, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com, and last but not least, swing by and check out Twitch. There is a link down below to our Twitch account. Yes, we do like to play games. We play games on the PSN network. If you're a Patreon supporter, shoot us a note. Let us know what your gamer tag is. We'll add you as a friend on the PSN network, and you can join us in a live stream over on Twitch. Guys, thanks for 11 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.